Welcome back to Saturn of Brookings. So I know a guy who knows a guy in Sioux Falls that has this old 1996 GMC Sonoma with the 2.2-liter engine and 5-speed manual transmission. He bought this truck brand new and has since brought it up to 219,000 miles. However, the engine failed a while ago and it has been parked for a little over a year. The engine does actually run, but it runs on Grandma's hopes and prayers, which isn't going to get us very far. By the time it gets up to temperature, the oil pressure drops and things start to go bad pretty quickly. On August the 8th, 2025, Mr. S10 Expert helped me haul the thing to Brookings with his 2003 Sonoma. He would have brought his 350 swapped S10, but at the time he was in the middle of replacing the transmission. After I got my Sonoma home and parked it in the garage, I went out to the cornfields of South Dakota and bought a replacement 2.2. This engine was pulled from a 94 S10, also with manual transmission. It only had about 98,000 miles, so it was a good choice. Back at home, I started the slow process of disassembling the engine compartment. I'm not going to go into depth on the disassembly process, so I recommend watching other YouTube videos that explain engine removal better. I recommend a video series by user Eric the Car Guy, who has a set of videos going into detail about how he swapped a 2.2 in his 2001 Sonoma. Obviously, the 2001 will have a few different steps, but the videos were still of great use to me. Anyway, I drained the oil to see how bad it was. It has a lot of fine metal shavings in it, but it wasn't as bad as I was expecting. I also noticed that nearly all of the spark plug wires were damaged. One of the most difficult tasks is to remove these two exhaust bolts. Not only are they hard to get at, but they will strip out at any chance they get. Since they are 13mm, I recommend using a 6-point half-inch socket to get as snug a fit as possible. The fuel lines are also a bit difficult to remove given their location. I had to take the passenger side wheel well liner out to gain access. The fuel fitting requires a 16mm wrench. The following Saturday, after a week of on and off work, I finally managed to remove the engine. The previous owner had the clutch replaced at about 30,000 miles ago, so it was in good condition. At this point in the project, I will have to start swapping parts from the 96 to the 94 engine. The 94 uses a vacuum-actuated EGR, actually the same one used on 94 and older Saturns. The 96 uses GM's electronic EGR, also the same used on 95 and later Saturns. I should be able to swap the mounting brackets. The exhaust outlet on the 94's manifold uses a ball and socket type of connection, whereas the 96 has a flat face connection. Swapping the exhaust manifolds will be trivial. The 96 has 3 fuel lines, a supply, a return, and a third one used for the evap system. The evap on the 96 not only adds a line that is not present on the 94, but also adds a module that has an additional vacuum line and electrical connector. However, it looks like the 94 block does have a mounting location for the module. The distributorless ignition coils have different electrical connectors and also have different mounting brackets. There doesn't seem to be anything stopping me from switching out the mounting brackets so that I can use the 96 coils on the 94. But now we have the major problems. This is the knock sensor on the 96. The 94 does not appear to even have a knock sensor. It has a spot where I can drill and tap a hole, but that will be very annoying. This is the camshaft position sensor. The 94 also does not have one of these. Worse yet, here on the 94 block, we can see that there is no possible way to add one. It was at this time that I determined that the 94 engine will not work. The 2.2 has 2 casting numbers. From what I understand, the 4-digit one on the top is more of a broad category of casting, and the 8-digit one on the bottom, which is a standard GM part number, is more specific. Both engines have completely different sets of numbers. For the 1996 model year and in conjunction with the introduction of OBD2, GM's 2.2 engine received sequential fuel injection. The engine block gained a camshaft position sensor to aid in timing the more advanced fuel system. My 94 engine does not have the sensor. If I really wanted to, I could probably get the 94 engine to run and drive the truck. However, I want a fully functional, as close to factory installation as I can get. I don't want to rewire anything, I don't want to reprogram anything, and I definitely don't want a permanent check engine light due to modifications. If I wasn't so picky, I could go as far as swapping in a Buick 3800 V6, as it would technically bolt up to the truck's transmission, but I'm not interested in making such modifications. I'm going to have to find another 2.2-liter engine. The 122 cubic inch motor was an inline-4 overhead valve gasoline engine. It was made by GM and introduced in the 1982 model year. It was a very simple engine that made its way into many GM vehicles of the 80s and 90s. It coexisted with the Iron Duke, but later ended up taking the Iron Duke's place as GM's standard 4-cylinder economy engine. During its lifetime, the 122 received many revisions, upgrading technology and increasing displacement, until its discontinuation around 2003. My truck has one such engine, specifically the LN2 variant. The LN2 came out for the 1992 model year and moved the 122 family from throttle body to multi-port fuel injection. By this time, the 122's displacement had been increased as high as 134 cubic inches, which is, of course, 2.2 liters. Starting in the 98 model year, the LN2 was upgraded with a new intake and some emissions stuff. The 122 family was finally discontinued, and its place as GM's standard 4-cylinder economy engine was given to the 2.2 Ecotec. So with that history lesson out of the way, I need to go find myself a different LN2, but it can't be just any old LN2. As I learned previously, it must be new enough to have a camshaft position sensor, so 96 or later. It must also be no newer than 97 because 98 introduced some changes. I can't say for sure that an L43 wouldn't work, but I don't want to find out the hard way. I'm also aiming for something with as low a miles as possible. These engines are decently reliable, but tend to go out after about 200,000 miles. This is a cheat sheet that I made and printed out to bring with me to junkyards. It has a lot of quick information about applicable GM engines, but most importantly is the LN2 application list. I found all of the use cases of the LN2 and what years they can be found in. So now I need to find one of these vehicles with the 2.2 that is a 96 or 97 model year and has relatively low miles. This was not as easy as I originally thought it would be. Rauner's Auto Parts in Wilmer, Minnesota is by far my favorite junkyard. They have about 100 acres of cars, and if there's a place that's going to have the engine I want, it would be here. Throughout August and September of 2025, I spent several Saturdays coming up to Rauner's and searching through the yard. It took me 2 weekends to determine where every section of GM vehicle I wanted is located. The A bodies are hidden in the trees. This would have the Buick Century and Oldsmobile Cutlass Sierra. The J bodies, Chevy Cavalier and Pontiac Sunfire, are near the Saturns. The Chevy Corsicas and Berettas are off to the side, and the S-Series trucks occupy this area. I found a lot of compatible LN2s, but all of them had well over 200,000 miles. By the end of the second visit, I narrowed the search down to 2 possible candidates. The first one is a 1997 Chevy Cavalier, and it has 125,000 miles. The hood has been missing for quite some time, so everything in the engine compartment is sun-faded. However, it says bad frame on the side, meaning that it probably didn't come to the junkyard because of a bad engine. The second car is a 1996 Chevy Corsica, and it has 138,000 miles. It is significantly more inaccessible than the Cavalier and has more miles. The next weekend, a friend and I went to Rauner's in a Ram pickup truck with the intent of taking home an engine. I chose the 97 Cavalier. We had some trouble getting it out, so the yard guy came in with a big forklift and started making the other Cavaliers disappear. Finally, we could side-load the 97. The guys at Rauner's are really nice, as they brought the car up front where we could work on it in the open. They placed it on an old barrel so we could get under the engine. Over the next couple of hours, my friend and I tore everything apart that was in the way of the engine. We pulled the engine off of what was left of the rusty subframe. Of course, the 4T40E 4-speed automatic was still attached, but that was sorted out. Interestingly, the maker's plate still says turbo-hydromatic, despite having been made in '97. By the end of it all, the engine was removed. We placed it in the back of the 1500 and took it home. Well, I think this is a good stopping point, so I'm going to end it here. In the next episode, I will convert the front-wheel drive LN2 to rear-wheel drive application, and of course, put the engine in my truck. Keep your eyes out for that video, but in the meantime, thanks for watching.